Let's do a show. Inside coverage on I think today's Tuesday. It is. Hi. It is Tuesday on the Yahoo Sports app, on yahoosports.tv, on the Yahoo YouTube page or podcast form, however you're enjoying this Tuesday edition of Inside Coverage, the how and the why of everything that you need to know in the National Football League. We thank you for listening and watching. My name is Andrew Siciliano. I am joined today by Charles Robinson. We are merely two men wearing hats. And I'll be honest with you, Charles, I'm kind of disappointed. You go back and forth between the Tigers hat and then the Colt 45's hat.
Yeah.
I figured you were going to wear the Tigers hat. And full disclosure, I woke up at like 5-something this morning in a hotel room in Cleveland and rushed to the airport in the rain and then sat there on a plane for 2 hours because there was a jackknife tractor trailer and the pilots were stuck on the highway and couldn't get to the airport. No one's fault. It was a jackknife tractor trailer and the interstate was shut down. But I'm exhausted. Who cares? But that's why I'm wearing the hat. I normally don't wear the hat on TV. I'm just explaining. But I decided I'm going to wear this because this is a football show. But the Guardians and the Tigers head-to-head for the next 3 nights at the corner of Carnegie and Ontario. I thought you'd wear the Tigers hat, Magnum PI. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed.
It needs to be washed, the truth be told. It's pretty ragged, and I looked at it yesterday, and I was like, I'm going to have to wash this before I wear it again. But yeah, they're duking out next 3 very key games for both the Guardians and the Tigers. Dawn is from Ohio, so we're a split household right now. She's
Love
big
Dawn.
Guardians
Haven't
fan.
met her. Love her though.
Yeah. She's huge Guardians fan. So yeah, split household. We'll deal with that the next couple of days. Split podcast, split household. What are we doing?
I mean, is the hat that filthy? Like, does the hat smell? I mean, you're in your own home. Okay.
No, it's pretty bad.
Sorry.
It's pretty awful.
Glad this isn't smell-o-vision.
No, the way I found out, it's crazy. The way I found out is it got rained on, and I didn't realize how dirty it was until water touched it. And then I looked at it, and I was like, it's disgusting. It's filthy. It's completely gross.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. 2 men in smelly hats. Let's continue. And actually, let's get to the football. We did this story yesterday. We did this story last week. We've done this story really since August or even July. Were we on in July? Well, you guys were. I wasn't here. It finally happened today, and that is Jaxson Dart is the starting quarterback for the New York Football Giants. I'm not aging myself. Like I didn't grow up in an era when they were called the Football Giants. That's what my dad called them. That's the old-time term for this team. And they now have a young-time quarterback because the old-time guy is out of the building. Jaxson Dart got the call today. And Jaxson Dart had to play. We all agreed on this yesterday. Frank Schwab as well when he was on the Monday program. It is time to do it, to rip the Band-Aid off because Russell Wilson, as good as he was week 2, that's how bad as he was week 3, and you owed it to your organization and your fans. But is this Brian Daboll trying to save his job or doing what is best for the team? It's what everybody wants, but is it truly best for Jaxson Dart's development? Because let me just give you the schedule here. And we kind of hit on this yesterday. We've done this before, but let's just go through the schedule. This week is the Chargers. We mentioned that. The Chargers are undefeated. The game is in New York, but they are a very tough out and a very tough defense. Then you go to New Orleans. Saints are the worst team in football. Okay. But then it's Philadelphia on Thursday Night Football short week. At Denver. Then at Philadelphia again, you get the Eagles twice in 3 weeks. Then the Niners and at the Bears and then home for the Packers. And then you go to the Lions. Is Brian Daboll acting out of self-preservation? Charles, that's what I need to know.
Well, yeah, again, we talked about this yesterday. I'm shocked. I don't want to say shocked, but you're not a great position to be sliding Jaxson Dart into the saddle against the Los Angeles Chargers. I still think, wait until week 5 until you get to the Saints. But I think that's what lends some credence to what you are saying right now. Is Brian Daboll, is this it? Like, is he right now, as in week 4, is he fighting for his job? And that's why Jaxson Dart ultimately gets the call now. I will say this, first and foremost, anybody who is a healthy first-round quarterback as a rookie is going to start. I know we can't, it's, if you're healthy, teams are going to play. We can't, this whole idea of garaging first round quarterbacks is just it's BS, and we might as well stop wasting time on that.
But they're kind of doing it in New Orleans. I know Tyler Shoug's a second-round pick, but he was taken
not a
30s
first-rounder.
for all intents and but for all intents and purposes, he was the guy they drafted to be the guy. But I
put money on whether he'll play this year.
You don't think he's going to play?
I think he'll play, absolutely. What I'm saying is this idea of guys sitting for long stretches of time is just not happening. And look, there's reason for it. Obviously, with the Giants, when you go back and you look at what transpired over the weekend against the Chiefs, I think the thing to me that was really alarming, in particular, when I rewatched some of it this morning, Neighbors, they don't do anything creatively with Malik Neighbors, right? And you're not trying to get him the ball in space, right? You're just, his route tree seems super limited. It's just it's a lot of go routes, it's a lot of deep balls. And I don't know, is that because of Russ? Is that because of the connection he has with Neighbors? Like, where is the creativity to this offense? It's just really not there. And again, I think when we see Dart in this offense, it's going to tell us something. Because if it's the same offense, there's no creativity. Malik Neighbors doesn't have a full route tree, and we're just seeing more of the same. Then I think that means maybe it's Brian Daboll, maybe it's the scheme, maybe it's the coach now who has been through a couple of years of quarterbacks, not named Josh Allen, not the first year of Daniel Jones, and really has not produced the way that we all thought he would coming out of Buffalo. And I'll ask you this, Andrew, do you not think that now it's only a 3-game, slice here in Indianapolis, but do you not think Daniel Jones,
you're reading my mind,
playing well right now in Indianapolis does not put a little heat on Daboll?
Yeah, and the way it does. And I almost framed the beginning of the conversation through the lens, and I'm mixing metaphors here, of Daniel Jones, but I chose not to. That was going to be my second point. And I brought some receipts on this. Now, let's not forget that Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll won a road playoff game a few years ago.
Yep.
Right? They went to Minnesota to beat the Vikings. Saquon Barkley was also part of that team. It wasn't just a one-man team, and quarterback wins and losses are whatever. But they won a playoff game on the road. That is significant. They had success, and then they didn't. And you can make the argument that Daniel Jones did a lot to get Brian Daboll fired. He survived, right? Joe Shane survived. Last year's draft class actually pretty good. And they survived to draft the next guy up, which is Jaxson Dart. But then you could also argue that Daniel Jones is doing a lot to get Brian Daboll fired now that he has left, because he is top 5 in the NFL in quarterback rating. He's number 1 in QBR, which is like rating. It's an ESPN created statistic because they didn't want to use quarterback rating. Use it for whatever you want to. He is top 5 in yards per game. He is number 1 in average length of completion. He hasn't thrown a pick. He has 3 touchdown passes. He has 3 rushing touchdowns. They are undefeated, and they're not punting. He's the cool kid on the Manning cast last night, taking shots at Peyton and Eli, even though he's still, and I love Daniel, he's still kind of flatlined there. It was a good watch, however. And yeah, it absolutely reflects back on your old environment. He is not the first quarterback to go somewhere else recently. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, there are others who get that new life. But it's new life after having success and then abject failure at the old place. I'm not saying that Jaxson Dart is starting because Daniel Jones is doing well, but it's hard to unravel the two.
Right. Yeah, and I'll say this for Daboll. When you look at what Daniel Jones has around him in Indianapolis, there's a lot of veteran experience, right? There's a lot of players that, Jonathan Taylor, an offensive line that has veteran experience, Michael Pittman. There's weapons there that, granted, when you compare it to what is in New York right now, New York has talent, but it's a younger skill set. When you talk about the skill position players. And I would argue the offensive line is playing far worse right now than what's going on in Indianapolis. But another thing, too, I will say for Daboll, and again, I still think it's all about whether the offense flourishes once Dart gets in there or not, or the creativity expands once Dart gets in there or not. We have to be realistic about Russ, though, here, too, as well. Pete Carroll moved on from him. Pretty good coach. Sean Payton moved on from him. Pretty good coach. Mike Tomlin moved on from him. Pretty good coach. Brian Daboll is not the first one to look at Russell Wilson and go, this is not working. It's not working. We got to do something different here. And so I still think that this could be about Russ's limitations as a quarterback at this stage in his career, and the fact that those limitations weren't going to change beyond week 4 of the football season. And if the limitations don't change, can the scheme change? The one thing that I always remember Sean McVay when he moved on from Jared Goff, and history has changed here, but I think at that time he felt like, I need to change my offense. I need to grow my scheme. I need to adjust it, and I need to know whether or not Jared Goff can come with me. And at the time they traded Jared Goff, part of that decision was because McVay did not believe he had the quarterback to grow and change the offense and expand it as he moved forward. I think about that in this situation with Russell Wilson, because I think he left prior destinations where they felt like the offense is going to be limited with this guy because of what he brings to the table right now. And if that's still the case here in New York, nothing was really going to change. And how long are you going to prolong this?
Yeah, it's a very good point here. There's a lot there on Jared as well. There's that day in Miami a bunch of years ago where Brian Flores blitzed him to death. They had prepared for it that week, and Jared just couldn't handle it. And Sean just got so frustrated that it was almost as if at that point the bridge was burned and he could never go back. And he had made up his mind at that point. It wasn't the only breaking point, but it was certainly one of the breaking points. And I'm happy for Jared. He looked amazing on Monday night. Obviously, the run game, the big hammer there for the Lions with their win in Baltimore. We'll get to that in a little bit, but Jared has certainly found success. As for Russ, I mean, it's a cool $10 million for 3 weeks. He's guaranteed 10.5. I think the Giants only owe him about 1.5 for the remainder of what's left here. So he's going to make 10 million. And while nothing is official from the Giants, this is just all that reportedly is it's going to be Jaxson Dart. It is assumed that Russ is going to go to number 3 behind Jameis Winston. And if that's the case, you may as well just, let him go and let him be and let him hit the free agent market and be the veteran gun for hire when there's another inevitable quarterback injury somewhere. A lot of coaches, when asked about a backup quarterback, this is the stamp of approval, the following phrase. You know what? He can get me through a game and he could hold down the fort for a couple of weeks. Most head coaches, they use that phrase to describe like the ideal backup quarterback. Russ, I think, can still be that guy somewhere, and he will land somewhere inevitably. And I'm assuming the Giants will do him right. To quote Russell Crowe, make it a soldier's death and let him go. We'll see. We'll see. Brian Daboll will make this official on Wednesday, at least the Jaxson Dart starting part of it. There was some reaction. Let's move on to the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the CJ Gardner-Johnson story here, because the Texans have released the veteran defensive back, and that is actually official late Tuesday afternoon. They're 0-3. They get the 0-3 Titans this week in a game. I don't know that anyone thought they would both be 0-3. Certainly the Titans weren't a possibility, but the Texans, no. The initial reaction on Twitter when this trade went down, Charles, was, Howie pulled a fast one again. He made a trade, and then that team got rid of the player. People pump the brakes. Love me some Howie Roseman. If you haven't noticed yet, the player for whom Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was traded, Kenyon Green, has already been cut twice by the Eagles. Okay, twice. They have brought him back. It's a 5 and 6 pick swap. So you could argue, yes, the Eagles kind of sort of got the better of the deal because they got a 5 instead of a 6. But really, this speaks to Houston's dysfunction. CJ is a bit of a hothead. That is not new wherever he has been. And reportedly, not only has he not been playing well, the film will tell you that, but he's been calling out other DBs in the room. He's been complaining about his role, wanted to blitz more, do some other things. And I think when you're 0-3, the squeaky wheel is the easiest move to make. When you're 0-3, even though your problems, Charles, are offensively, it doesn't matter. If you're the squeaky wheel, we're going to make you the example.
Yeah, I mean, the locker room comes into play, right, at some point. It's right now, the environment inside the Texans, from the outside looking in, it looks messy. right? I mean, it's just everything about this team feels like it's been turned upside down this season, and so many of the problems, particularly on offense, that we thought were going to be fixed. You fire Bobby Slowick, you move to Nick Caley. You're thinking, hey, we're getting a part of the vaunted Rams coaching tree here, and so we're going to bring this scheme in, and things are going to be great. And then I think you kind of hit a little bit of an iceberg in the offseason when all of a sudden CJ Stroud's having like arm soreness and he's missing some OTAs and he's not always out there throwing, and you're immediately thinking like how serious is this? Like CJ Stroud downplayed it. DeMeco Ryans downplayed it. He throws 38 passes this weekend, so it's not like it's something we're sitting there going, geez, he seems like he's on a pitch count. But again, this starts to become a culture thing. If there are problems that can be fixed by simply moving somebody off the roster at this point, you're 0-3. You have to do something now to change what's happening internally there, because offensively, I don't know where this goes. And I would ask you look at that roster right now. I think they missed Tank Dell horribly. I think that's a piece of that offense where, he was a separator. He was, small, fast, could get open in almost any scheme you put him in. Him not being there, I think, really hurts. It looks like Nico Collins, who really was a non-factor in week 1 and 2, Nico Collins and a bunch of guys. Xavier Hutchinson's a guy. Jaden Higgins isn't really there yet. The offensive line still, it's got its problems. They're not running the ball well. CJ Stroud is, I think at times when you watch him, he'll drift in the pocket. I think at times he'll feel like there's pressure that's not really there. The interceptions have not looked good. And the crazy thing for the Texans is when we talk about culture and the future of this team and what DeMeco Ryans is building there, Andrew, they were prepared to go into this offseason talking about an extension for CJ Stroud. Wow. Like through 3 games, now you're like, man, I hope something changes in the next 14 games, because this is now could be something that extends into the offseason where you're now saying, do we wait another year on Stroud? Because this start, if it's elongated, I don't know that you're ready to pay your quarterback that quickly.
It's interesting. I hadn't even thought about going there. Like the idea that they don't have their guy, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go there because I still think, we've seen it. The talent is there.
Absolutely. Right.
And this is a bigger conversation about quarterbacks. Like if you think you have the guy, you pay him because the number's only going to go up. Next year, it's going to get that much more expensive. The cap goes up, the number goes up, other deals get done. So if you think you have them, you sign them. Now, do you wait a year? I mean, the Dolphins waited a year, right?
Yeah.
There's a long season to go, clearly. But that's an interesting path to go down. Yeah. Like if they somehow lose to the Titans, who Brian Callahan today says there's nothing wrong with my play calling, but I'm going to give up play calling.
Right.
And as Brian Billick has repeatedly told me over the years, hey, once you give it up, you don't get it back. Although Kevin Stefanski was able to do that this year. Once you give it up, you don't get it back. He gave up play calling, but didn't give it to his OC, Nick Holtz. He passed over him and gave it to the quarterback coach, Bo Hardegree. And they're 0-3. With the worst passing offense of the NFL. It's a rookie quarterback, the number 1 pick. You give him time. Anyway, the 0-3 Titans, the 0-3 Texans this week is an interesting game on a lot of levels. We haven't even gotten to the Monday Night Football game, but we're already running late. Let's push that to the next segment. Also coming up, Charles Robinson, this guy, the guy wearing the Colt 45s hat, has written, and it's on Yahoo right now, about the Micah Parsons reunion. The Packers coming home to Dallas without any Micah Parsons fanfare, and with the Cowboys, the worst pass defense in the National Football League. Inside coverage. We'll do those stories next. Don't go anywhere. Inside coverage on a Tuesday here with Week 3 officially wrapped up. Andrew Siciliano and Charles Robinson. Week 3 wrapped up with a great game. A game that I came in somewhat skeptical that it could be a Super Bowl preview. I actually thought the Ravens were the better team than the Lions. The Lions thumped on the Ravens. They got their revenge from a couple of years ago when they were de-pantsed in Baltimore, where they didn't even have a first down before the Ravens had multiple touchdowns. This was almost exactly the opposite. Great back and forth game that included a 67-yard field goal try. Jake Bates almost nailed it at the end of the second quarter. A great goal line stand as well by the Lions, and in the end, a gutsy fourth down call, and the Lions get their win. The reports of their demise after week one greatly exaggerated, and they are 2-1, and the Ravens are 0-2. Charles, my biggest concern here with the Ravens, not that they're 1-2. Look, they're still a playoff team. I still think they are the best team in the AFC North, but their defense, dude, it's a major issue. They have scored 30 points in every game, and they're 1-2. The rest of the NFL scoring 30 points this year is 19-2. The Baltimore Ravens, Zach Orr, defensive coordinator. Last year, they started slowly. First year, they fixed it. The Ravens have allowed the most yards in the NFL. I'll repeat that again. The Baltimore Ravens have the number 32 total defense in football. They're allowing 415 yards a game and 32 points a game. They ain't going to win that way.
No, there's no way. I mean, there's just the way Detroit ran the ball, I think, to me, was just stunning. I mean, it was David Montgomery, 12 of the most authoritative carries I think you could have seen, and the front end of Baltimore was getting buried. And let's remember, this was the Detroit Lions offensive line, and this is a mea culpa on my part. I told you yesterday when we were off the air, I thought the Lions were going to get the break speed off them. I really did. I wasn't sure that I thought the Lions were going to get buried. I still had thoughts of them trailing what was like 35-0 the last time they played the Ravens in this situation, and I still had questions about the Lions, the front end of the Lions offensive line. I'm like, okay, I still don't know. Is this the Packers offensive line that we saw with the Lions, or is it against the Bears? Like, which offensive line are we ultimately going to get here? Well, we definitely got what I think was a throwback to last season. I mean, they were just absolutely burying the Ravens at the point of attack. And, to me, that if you can't fix the front end of the Ravens defense, I'm sorry, you're gonna have issues all season long. This is never really going to be something that stops. I don't think the back end, the secondary, I mean, it's like Kyle Hamilton's a star. There's no question in my mind. But beyond him, I don't know who you count on an in and out every play, every game scenario.
All first and second round picks, like Nate Wiggins, Jair Alexander. Alexander hasn't been. He played week one. He's clearly not ready yet. He's been a scratch the last 2 weeks. But it's nothing but primo picks back there. But I hear you. 2 weeks ago, Roquan Smith was the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Right, he's all over the field. That defense was great, but they missed Matabike last night, and I don't want to be the speculation doctor here, but John Harbaugh's been pretty vague. It's a neck injury. They ruled him out on Friday. No details here, and without Matabike in the middle of that line, to your point, David Montgomery said, "I have the easiest job in the world because this is the best O-line." Obviously, he's praising his guys in the NFL. He goes, "My job was easy tonight."
Yeah, and the Lions, I got to give a shout out to defensively. I was so impressed with, Kelvin Shepard, the defensive coordinator. If you want to talk about a moment where somebody puts their foot in the ground, you're like, okay, man, like he's here. He's showcasing what he can bring to the table. I think in that second half goal line stand was crazy to me because you saw a situation where Baltimore, with the weapons that they have, particularly running the football, they break the huddle quickly. They run to the line. It's all quick counts, 4 plays in a row. And typically what happens when defenses face that, there's a mix-up. There's a miscommunication because everybody's running the line and somebody doesn't understand what their assignment is. They don't pick their, the player that they're matched up with coming out of the huddle. They don't know exactly what the look is. And the ball snapped and a touchdown scored. The Lions didn't have any of those issues. And not only that, I think at one point Baltimore was unbalanced, and you had everybody in Detroit's sideline, Kelvin Shepard, Dan Campbell, all screaming, "It's unbalanced, unbalanced." They slid, they took care of it. To stone them 4 times at the line of scrimmage like that, and have that kind of a stand, to me, is indicative of the toughness this defense can now carry forward into the season. 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson, really bottling him up, kind of creating this cocoon around him and always having someone near his feet so that if it looked like he was ready to break out, somebody was tripping him. The punch out by Aiden Hutchinson in the fourth quarter of the Derrick Henry, creating the Derrick Henry fumble, big, huge turning point. What a game defensively for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Jack Campbell, heck of a game there as well. He's the one who forced the fumble. He made a couple of other plays. He had his face bloodied, his mouth bloodied by the end of the game. Dan Campbell said today that Campbell's spitting out the calls in the huddle late in the game, and he's got like blood bubbling out of his mouth, and his teammates thought it was hysterical. I mean, that's the most Dan Campbell thing of all time. And you're right. Great point about getting at Lamar's legs. He hates it when you get at his legs. I mean, any quarterback would hate it when you get at his legs, but you can't tackle him high. You got to go low. Clean and safe when you go low, but you cannot tackle him high. And they got to him, and they wreaked some havoc. Last year, they brought in Dean Pease to kind of trim down that defensive playbook and kind of streamline things for a rookie DC. This year, Dean Pease isn't there. It's, why am I drawing a blank? The former head coach of the Colts, Chuck Pagano, is there. Obviously been a Baltimore assistant in the past. They got to fix this thing, because the low-hanging fruit on TV is going to be Derrick Henry fumbled. And yes, the fumble week 1, the fumble week 3. He also fumbled week 2, but they recovered it. Those have been huge, but the overall story here truly is their defense, and it could be their undoing. Have you read Charles Robinson's article on the Cowboys yet on Yahoo online? You should if you haven't already. Jerry Jones is talking, as he always does. He says they're going to turn Micah Parsons into 5'6", 15, 35, how many ever players, but obviously you can't do that yet. The Cowboys have no pass defense whatsoever. Funny how that works when you have a banged-up secondary that's probably short on talent to begin with, and you, without Micah Parsons, can't rush the passer. Guess who's coming to town this week? Who is it, Charles?
Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers.
Micah Parsons.
Jerry's fine, though. They're all good. It's fine. They're good. No hard feelings.
Mm-mm.
What I think is really interesting about this is when you listen to Jerry talk this morning. He's talking to the flagship station, and he gets asked, "Hey, did this happen because your money got mad?" Which is like one of his favorites, euphemisms, where it's basically he's saying, you allow emotion or pride or something else to eject itself into the negotiations. And that's why things went awry. And Jerry is insistent, no, absolutely not. That's not what happened here. He goes into the whole spiel that he's had ever since the trade occurred, that we were looking at potentially trading Micah, throughout this offseason. We had to fix the run defense. We have these first round assets that are coming over. And hey, there's no ill will and there's no regrets. Well, yeah, there's no regrets yet, because nothing has happened on the football field realistically. You're only 3 games in to make you regret it. That can change, right? That can change Sunday. And I think, to me, when you sit and you think about it, is he going to regret it if the Green Bay Packers put this season together the way they think they can, and Micah Parsons is slipping on a Super Bowl ring at some point? Yeah, he's going to regret it. And there's going to be some feelings that Jerry Jones is ultimately going to have. I remember when they let DeMarcus Ware go, and DeMarcus Ware went to the Denver Broncos, and DeMarcus Ware won a Super Bowl ring with the Denver Broncos. And it kind of became a sore subject where you didn't want to bring up DeMarcus Ware around Jerry Jones. He didn't really want to talk about it because he had made a business decision to let DeMarcus Ware go. Now, granted, different situation than Micah. DeMarcus Ware, I think, was 31 at the time. But I think it hurt Jerry to see a player he liked and really prized go somewhere else to win that ring. I think that's what he's really ultimately going to have to grapple with long-term here with the Micah Parsons trade. And, we can get into what's going on with Dallas and everything else in terms of, defensively their problems. But there is a whole psychology and amount of therapy that I think could end up going into the Jerry Jones-Micah Parsons relationship by the time it's all done.
We spoke about this with DeMarcus Ware last year, or last week, I beg your pardon. I said, you had 7 years there. You went. 2 years later, you won a Super Bowl. Mike is going to do the same thing, isn't he? And he said, basically, it pains me to say it, but probably yes. Now, Mike is a lot younger. He played 4 years, not 7. He is not getting older as DeMarcus was. But the Cowboys have given up 864 passing yards. They're playing Matt Eberflus is, they're playing kind of a cover 3. Obviously, they're dropping and they're not getting any push up front. Yeah, they're playing zone and they're not healthy on the back end, and they probably don't have the talent on the back end, and they're getting carved up. I'm going to give credit to Mark Schlereth here. It's kind of snarky, but I heard him on with Rich Eisen today, and he said, hey, Matt Eberflus took all this heat, but this week he finally made Caleb Williams look good. Like, boom, boom.
That's a great one.
That's
nice.
That's a great line. Now, Rich pushed back and was like, hey, come on. I called a Bears game last year in which he threw 4 touchdowns. It's not as if Caleb Williams hasn't had his moments, but he certainly looked the best that he has had yet in the NFL for a complete 4 quarters this past week. And it came at the expense of the Cowboys. And all of that is uncomfortable. And it's going to get even more uncomfortable when Jerry is already getting asked. He didn't bring it up, but when he's doing all his radio interviews, he's already been asked, well, what about Matt Eberflus? Well, we're not going to make any changes.
In-season coaching
games.
3 games.
It's been 3 games.
You know,
right? Like,
Andrew, it reminds me a little bit of at the beginning of Mike McCarthy's tenure when he had Mike Nolan, right, as defensive coordinator. And I remember at the time, inside that locker room, the players are like, the scheme is too complicated. We don't fit the scheme. The personnel here doesn't fit the scheme. And you're sitting there and you're staring at it and you're like, yeah, this isn't going to make it. Like, McCarthy's going to have to fire Mike Nolan after 1 season because of the fact that the scheme fit is not necessarily correct for the skill set of the players. I think that's being asked right now about that, super zone heavy scheme that Matt Eberflus is running. And then I also think about the fact that, they signed Dante Fowler Jr., right? He was supposed to come in and do something. He's done nothing. Now you're going to Jadeveon Clowney, who's a mercenary pass rusher at this point in his career. I think he's a guy.
And honestly, I'm cutting you off. He's better. Honestly, to me, he's better setting the edge than he is chasing the passer.
Sure, absolutely. And honestly, I think it was like, go back to his best days in Houston. He was a very, very good run defender. He just didn't finish off a lot of pass rushing pressures. And so I look at that, and then this has just got to be salt in the wound when you think about it. Al-Qadim Muhammad was in the Dallas Cowboys camp last year.
That's a good point.
And now you're a Cowboys fan. You're watching him against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. 2.5 sacks, total disruption. He's been great for the Lions, and he wasn't even. He was really supposed to be a depth piece for the Lions on the edge. And this was a guy. Now, granted, he's 30, but he was in your camp last year, and now he's elsewhere, mixing it up and giving a pass rush to another high-end team. That's got to hurt if you're a Cowboys fan. And I'm just telling you, I think this is a game that is setting up where Parsons could absolutely come in and have a nuclear type of game. He's got 15 pressures this year, only 1.5 sacks, but he's going to start finishing these. I think he's got that chip on his shoulder. I hate that cliche, but he truly has everything on this game, every reason to prove why he should have been taken care of, and he should not be in a Green Bay Packers uniform. And I think if that happens, you're going to see the wheels come off in an unbelievable fashion in Dallas with the fan base.
And that is the Sunday night game in Dallas, Tirico and Collinsworth and Melissa. There are some who think, oh, wow, that game has less shine now because the Packers lost. No. The Packers are angry. Matt LaFleur is going to – it's going to be the hardest week of the year after all the talking the Packers did last week, talking about going undefeated and then losing in the way they lost to the Browns, up 10-0 with 3:45 to go, and dominating. And then all of a sudden, at least their defense was dominating. Both defenses were dominating. And then they lose it. And by the way, Al-Qadim Muhammad, part of the Dan Campbell post-game speech last night in Baltimore, he got one of the game balls and he thanked the entire locker room. He goes, hey, guys, a year ago, I was on the couch. Yep. And you guys welcomed me in here, and I'm so happy to be part of this family. I want to turn it back to Caleb real quick. Charles, you're a Midwesterner. You have you ever been to the Wiener Circle in Chicago?
I have not. That was the first time. I lived in Chicago for 8 years. I have no idea what this place. Never been. No.
Okay. So the Wiener Circle is one of the greatest slices of Americana there is. It's on Clark between Fullerton and Diversey. So like Clark and Wrightwoodish, if that means anything to you, 2600 North, okay, in Lincoln Park. And it's one of those late night hot dog stands. No one goes to the Wiener Circle at noon on a Tuesday for lunch, okay? You go there after a night on the town. A lot of young people living in Lincoln Park. I used to be one of them when I came out of college. You've been pounding old styles all night, and then you go to the Wiener Circle for a dog or a burger and fries late at night because that's what you do. But the Wiener Circle is unlike any other place because they curse at you and they want to be cursed at. And so drunk kids walk in and you stand there and you go, hey, give me a bleepity, 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 bleep. And then the people behind the counter curse right back at you. And if you don't know what's going on, you are stunned. Like, what is this? I took my brother and his future wife there many years ago, 30 years, 25 years ago. The look on her face, her jaw hit the floor. I mean, there was also like a rat the size of an armadillo going down the alley and crossing Clark. It actually looked both ways before it crossed the street. The thing was the size of an elephant, but that's another story. If you go in there, Charles, and just say, hey, give me a hot dog, they curse you out and say, there's no hot dog on the menu. It's a bleeping char dog. Order it right. Long story short.
Andrew, I clearly missed this. I clearly missed this because I lived in Chicago in my 30s. It had to be because I was in my 30s, right? Like maybe my 20s, I would have.
You could still go. So you saw the videos there on the screen, and if you're listening to the podcast, let me explain it. Get to the point, Andrew. The Wiener Circle promised free hot dogs for everybody on Tuesday if Caleb threw 4 touchdowns, and then Caleb threw 4 touchdowns. So there's a line around the block, and then up the block, and then down the block, and then around the block, all to get into the Wiener Circle this afternoon. And the Bears posted video, because they leaned into it as well. The place is an institution. But all the videos the Bears posted have no sound, because you can't possibly post the audio. Look, there's Staley, the Bears mascot. Staley has never been cursed at like he was cursed at today. Okay. On the worst loss at Soldier Field, Staley has never heard the language like he heard today at the Wiener Circle. I wish I could have been there for this.
Andrew, it's easy enough to hear expletives online. I think they can just go ahead and do the audio. It's okay. I think people will be okay. If you go there, you know what you're getting.
Not on the official Bears team account. It's got to be fan friendly. It's got the shield. You can't. Charles, I listened to some of the Wiener Circle account posted audio, like the official account of the hot dog stand. I'm going to just warn you. If you go listen to it, warn your wife.
I'm sending Dawn immediately. As soon as I'm off the show.
That's all I am going to say. Coming up next, how do we feel about the Chiefs offense? Also coming up next, how do we feel about Kirk Cousins being called upon in the fourth quarter on Sunday? I'll tell you what, if I was Raheem Morris, there was no way I would have done it. That's just me. That's Charles. I'm Andrew. This is Inside Coverage. It's Inside Coverage. Welcome back on Yahoo. A Tuesday here, turning the page from week 3 to week 4. And in week 4, Charles Robinson, there's a mildly significant game in the AFC. When you already think ahead to home field advantage, and yes, that is what we do. Remember that the Bills rallied and they stunned the Ravens week 1. And then the Bills also later get the Chiefs. But now the Chiefs and the Ravens face off this week. That game is in the late window in Kansas City. It is one of 4 games in the late window. And barring a tie, Charles, which, hey, could happen. You never know. Somebody is walking out of here at 1-3. Either Lamar Jackson, and we've talked about the Ravens already on this show, is 1-3, or the Chiefs are 1-3. And the Chiefs would be 1-3. Considering that through the first 3 games, they have only allowed 56 points. That's it. But wait a minute. 56 points. How are they possibly 1-2 and possibly 1-3? Because by every single measurable metric, This is the worst Chiefs offense since Mahomes took over as the full-time starter. 21 points per game through three. I'm talking through 3 games. The worst. Total yards per game, 315. The worst. Passing yards per attempt, they're under 6. They're at 5.9. The worst. First downs a game, 19. This is their worst. And I don't know that there is an obvious fix. Listen, I am never going to question Andy Reid. Okay, never. Matt Nagy, when he has been there with Andy Reid, they've been a pretty good tandem. But they don't have. I'm all for Brashard Smith. I would make him the number 1 back right now. That was discussed Sunday night on the broadcast, and the conversation was basically Andy said no, that's not going to happen when it came up during the production meeting. But you need some juice. You need somebody that could run away from people. Tyquan Thornton has been a nice find for a guy that the Patriots kicked to the curb after a relatively uneventful couple of years there in New England. I'd go pick him up in fantasy right now, but I don't know that it's enough. Maybe the Baltimore defense is going to be the elixir that fixes the Chiefs offense. And how about that sentence, saying it out loud? But I don't know where the obvious fix is for the Chiefs, and that's what concerns me.
Yeah, and I mean, there are problems here that are okay, sure, there's an obvious fix. Go get another right tackle. You can't do that right now.
But
right?
they paid Jawan Jones.
And
they can get out after this year.
It's just I look at the scenario where offensively up front, I think the offensive line hasn't felt good in a couple of years now, right? And I don't think whatever fine-tuning they have done has not ultimately come to fruition in the way that they had hoped it would solidify that group. The running backs, as you said, it's not a running back on the roster who has more than I think like 92 yards. No, nobody's broken 100 total in 3 games.
Yeah,
I think Patrick Mahomes has 125 yards
than all the others combined. Did you see the play on Sunday night where Pacheco turned the wrong way in the backfield?
Yes. Yeah.
Mahomes goes to check it down, and he throws it to the back.
Goes the wrong way.
Pacheco's the back. He's going the other way. He has his back to the line of scrimmage. He clearly got spun around and lost where he was. And you're like,
and he's a veteran,
what
Andrew.
Are we doing?
That's the thing.
Yes.
Right. It's not a rookie out there. This is a veteran. This is a guy who's played in massive games. And we thought at this and done well. Yeah, absolutely. He's been a centerpiece back for them in stretches in the past. And I don't know what exactly has happened. And okay, so there's part of that. Why is the guy going the wrong way? There's communication problems. You have to wonder if there's some kind of breakdown between Nagy and the offensive players, or something going on in the scheme where players just aren't picking things up. Another thing that really, really alarmed me. We saw that incident where Travis Kelce and Andy Reid get into it on the sideline, and Reid kind of bumps him, right? And they're kind of jawing. They're going back and forth. And Reid gets asked coming off the field about it. And basically he said, we need some good. Hopefully that gives us some juice. And I was like, whoa, okay. This is, we're at this point now where you're basically confronting players, and not just any player. It's Travis Kelce, and it's happened before, but you're hoping that somehow it happened in the Super Bowl. Very, very, a lot of people talking about that. I remember the Swifties were all concerned about that one. And, but if the head coach, and it's Andy Reid of all people, is basically saying, we're flat, we're not playing with juice. One of the things that I think about is you can say whatever you want about Eric Bieniemy, right? You can have your problems with Eric Bieniemy, but I knew when Eric Bieniemy was in that franchise as the OC, he coached those guys so hard. He was so confrontational. He would grind and go after guys. And part of me wonders have we lost a little bit of that, a little of the fire that the Chiefs had from that gap, when Eric Bieniemy left the franchise to now. And I know there were drawbacks. There's this whole litany of other issues. But again, I always remember hearing that from inside the Chiefs, just about there was no coach who coached players harder inside that locker room and on that field than Eric Bieniemy. And now to hear Andy Reid basically say we need some juice and we're looking flat, and that's without even getting to the talent, the lack of talent in the skill positions. It's scary to me what's going on. And I've said it in the past, and I'll ask you, do you think Rashee Rice steps on the field? Frank Schwab said he believes Rashee Rice will come in after missing 6 games. Everything will change. It'll be the same old Chiefs, and we'll be eating crow by the end of the season. Do you believe that?
I do think it will certainly make them better, and I would never count this team out. They're going to have to go on the road, it seems, this year in the postseason, and I know we're 3 months away from that. But they're going to have to go win on the road, which they have done before, certainly. But the question of how many games can they win until Rice gets back to fix the offense. I remember last year, Charles, I saw them in person once. They came to Cleveland, and then they eked out a win against a Browns team that was in a spiral at that point. But the Browns hung tough. It was a bad weather game. It was raining, and the story was Taylor Swift going to be there because Travis was coming home to Cleveland? I mean, that was really the story of the game. But talking to people before they came to town, people that had already seen the Chiefs in person last year, the overwhelming opinion was it's the slowest team offensively that they had seen anywhere in the NFL. Like, so beyond slow. Now, Hollywood Brown was out. Hollywood is now back. Okay. So they do have that speed element. Brashard Smith, the rookie running back, SMU, is fast, but he's rarely on the field, and he's not getting a heavy workload. Isaiah Pacheco is not a fast back. I mean, the running joke is he looks like a zombie when he looks like somebody from The Last of Us, or looks like a guy, it's all, everyone's got their line about he's running angry at the grass, whatever. Kareem Hunt, love him, but he's not going to run away from you. He's a goal line back for all intents and purposes. And Kelsey did a lot of work in the offseason to get into better shape, but to also get more functional old man kind of quickness, right? Be better at the top of his route. Maybe not losing weight. He's not going to run a faster 40, but all these little things that he felt he needed to work on now that he's at an advanced age. But as the play calling caught up with that, you're not running a tight end screen to Travis Kelce anymore. He's not going to go 60 yards. No one's running away from you on this team really other than Hollywood, and he's not the deep ball threat. He's not. He never has been. And Tyquan Thornton. Well, if your offense has to run through Tyquan Thornton now, that's a sentence no one ever thought they would say out loud. Travis Kelce can still play. He can still play, and he can still be the security blanket. He can still be the number one weapon. But your number one weapon is an underneath threat, is a choice route guy. And that does not lead to an explosion on the scoreboard.
So let me ask you this, Andrew. Would you, if you're running the Chiefs and you're sitting there and you're staring at this, at the lack of speed, and you'll know, I think you'll have a general feel once Rice comes back and you get to the trade deadline, you'll have a general feel of kind of what you are, right? And you'll definitely know what's lacking. You'll know what the injury situation is. Do you say, let's go out at the trade deadline, let's maximize what we've got left? Because again, Kelsey probably not going to be here next year. Offensive line's going to change again this offseason. The backfield will probably change next offseason. I think the skill, the wide receivers won't. So do you go and you make an acquisition or two and try to patch it up and get it right for one last shot? Or do you just acquiesce and go, no, we're keeping our assets, we're keeping our picks, and we're going to do what the Eagles did a few years ago after they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles? The Eagles went through a micro rebuild for a couple of years where they had to, acquire talent. They changed the way they drafted. So all of a sudden, Howie was like, I'm drafting all these guys from the SEC. This is what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to build. And then we will acquire certain guys, pay them, and we'll usher in younger talent. And that's how our river will keep flowing. Do you do the micro rebuild? Or do you take the last shot and expend some assets and try to jam in one more Super Bowl appearance for the Chiefs?
I would try to jam one more in. Now it depends on who I'm acquiring and what I have to give up. But I think their defense is still good enough to win right now. And you have Mahomes. And if you have Mahomes in the defense, then you have a shot. Is Tyreek Hill going to fix your offense overnight. Tyreek Hill and Rashee Rice, does that fix you? I don't know. Are you going to go find a running back that's going to magically, be a workhorse? I don't think that you are. Those guys generally aren't walking around or sitting on the couch, and they aren't trade pieces generally this time of the year. I think, people say, well, the Dolphins should blow the whole thing up and get rid of Tyreek. I don't know that there aren't going to be many teams that want him with even more off the field stuff hanging out there. The Chiefs might be the one team that could stomach it. Even though it ended poorly, they're the one team. But what do you give up? And how much salary do you take?
Well, yeah, and those two things will affect each other, right? I mean, the more salary you take on, the lesser draft pick ultimately you give up. And
would you give up a day 2 pick? I wouldn't.
No. For Tyreek Hill? No.
So it's a day 3 pick, and how much money are you willing to eat?
I mean, whatever. I got to look at their cap situation right now. I don't have it right in front of me. I mean, I have to see how much cap they're trying to roll over into next season. But yeah, I mean, there's no way I would give up anything earlier than a day 3 pick. I mean, it's at this point, especially when you get to the trade deadline, and if Miami is bottomed out at that stage, you might just want Tyreek Hill off the roster, and whoever's willing to take him back in. Yeah, go ahead and take him. And as you said, the Chiefs already they have a history with him, right? The coaches know him, the players know him. You would probably say, let's try to capture lightning in a bottle here through the remainder of the season. He's just a rental to the end of the season, and then we part company in the offseason. And I also identified Miami. I said, look, try to pick their bones. Like, if you can get Devon Achane from the Miami Dolphins, which I doubt, but if you can,
I doubt.
See if that's available. See what else you could potentially get off of their roster, because the Miami situation to me feels like if they bottom out, I don't know that Mike McDaniel's there, and I don't know that they're not already talking about blowing it up and maybe even considering taking the asteroid strike of moving on from Tua,
which would be absurd here as well. All right, speaking of quarterbacks and contracts and trade pieces, we got about 2 minutes here at the end, Charles, to tap the base on what went down with the Falcons on Sunday. They lost. They got shut out by the Panthers. I mean, it's one of those scores where if you hadn't been watching the game, if you were watching a different game or doing something else with your family, maybe actually having a life on a Sunday, and you looked at that score, you thought it might be a misprint. Maybe there was a malfunction in your new iPhone. But no, that was the score. They shut them out like 30-0. It's absurd, which isn't really the full story. To me, the most interesting thing is that Michael Penix, in the words of Raheem Morris on Tuesday, was off, wasn't himself. And so they put in Kirk Cousins to mop up at the end. Logically, you go, if it's 30-0, sure, I'll take my number 1 quarterback out and put in my number 2 quarterback. But in this case, their number 2 quarterback is an old man who's making $27 million, who is a legitimately valuable trade piece for that inevitable quarterback injury for a contender somewhere down the line in the next few weeks. If I'm Terry Fontenot, if I'm Arthur Blank, I'm going, excuse me, Raheem, this is just me. Why are you putting our best trade asset at risk? Why on earth would you do that? And maybe it's just, maybe I have a totally different opinion. I haven't heard anyone else say this. I would put him in bubble wrap. I would tell him to sit in a suite. I don't even want you near the sidelines, or you might get hurt if somebody, if Marcus Mariota Dan Quinn's you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's confusing. It is. But I have to wonder if Arthur Blank's not playing a part of this. Because when they kept Kirk Cousins, everyone you spoke to, whether it was inside the Falcons franchise, whether it was inside Kirk Cousins' camp, whether it was inside other teams that were thinking Kirk Cousins would come free in the offseason, everything was about how Arthur Blank made the decision. No, I want to keep him. We will keep him as an asset, and we will figure things out as we move forward. I wonder if Arthur Blank is not sitting there and saying, maybe we don't want to trade this guy at this point. We're going to pay him. We've committed to paying him. We don't have teams out there that are going to line up and take on the amount of salary that we're going to ask them to take on, because we feel now we have leverage. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you're panicking now and you're saying, we have to do something, make a call on Kirk Cousins, the Falcons are going to ask, you're going to take a significant portion of Kirk Cousins' salary. Bengals aren't going to line up for that. And I think,
don't you have to protect the asset in case that call happens? I guess that's my point.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. That makes sense to me. It is confusing that you would put him out there at that stage and really lay that on the line. But again, I just wonder if this is not Arthur Blank maybe already sort of committing to, let's see where this goes with Michael Penix through the remainder of this season. Let's keep the veteran in place who we've already committed to paying because we have not gotten that nibble at this point. And I don't think Arthur Blank Arthur Blank's very involved. He goes through film study after games. There's this, every coach that comes out of there will tell you stories about Arthur Blank wanting, to watch film with you, and you have to explain what's going on. What were the mistakes? Let's lay them out. Maybe this is an Arthur Blank move that we don't really fully understand in terms of the I don't want to say recommitment to Kirk Cousins, but at least the commitment that we may keep this guy because we feel like we need him through the rest of the season, and I don't want to go through a lost year.
Yeah, Arthur Blank's not the only owner that watches film, but he is certainly on the list of those that want an explanation as to the things that happen on game day. He's the man writing the check. And yeah, to your point, back when everyone in the league thought, oh no, Kirk Cousins is getting traded, you often heard, well, front office kind of sort of has to save some face here as well. Like, how do you go to the owner and say, hey, thanks for writing that $100 check that we insisted you write last year? We're just going to eat a lot of it because that makes them look bad, like really bad.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you explain to the owner, hey, that beautiful house you built me? Yeah, you know what? We don't like it. We're going to move out. But you paid for it. Cool, thanks. Yeah, cool. And then it eventually turned to, well, okay, we'll just keep him. We're paying him anyway. Sure, but Penix is the guy. I still think Michael Penix is the guy. One bad game is not going to change that. The Michael Penix we saw on Sunday night, week 2, looked pretty good. I thought he looked pretty good, right? He can still be that guy. It's not all his fault that it went as badly as it did. Yeah. However, it was pretty ugly. I mean, the Carolina Panthers had a great fourth quarter week 2 in Arizona. I didn't think anyone thought they were going to take that great fourth quarter and the next week shut out a division rival, any division rival not named the New Orleans Saints. But it happened.
Yeah, and
all right.
And Andrew, let's be honest, every quarterback from, all these young quarterbacks have had lumps. The ones we love right now.
Absolutely.
Have all had lumps.
Absolutely. It's part of the job. I thought the conversation last night between Peyton, Eli, and Daniel Jones was good in that regard as well. All coached by David Cutcliffe, all had to learn on the job, all had a lot of failure. And I was thinking of that as well today with the whole conversation watching Brian Callahan's press conference, which was a bit awkward again. We're talking about Cam Ward here. He's the number 1 overall pick. It's after 3 games, we're already deciding that this operation is failing the kid. And we have to take away play calling. Well, Brian, what about your play calling? Do you not like? No, I'm good with my play calling. It works. I'm paraphrasing. That's not what he said. But he said, I have no problem with my play calling. Okay, well, so did someone tell you to give up the play calling? No, I kind of want to keep an eye on all the operation, which is a reasonable answer. I have heard that from other coaches. Like, hey, I want to call plays, but there are other fires that I got to put out in this building right now. So the most important thing for this team in this locker room is me to go put out those other fires. Somebody else can call plays.
Just make sure though, when you're giving up. Just make sure though, I will say, when you're giving up play calling, to make it look as feasible as possible, try to give it to someone who has called plays before. All right, well, someone who has a.
Well, Hardigree did for 5 minutes.
5 minutes
with the Raiders, or how many ever games that was in?
It was such
that in 21 short, with the Raiders, I think.
I mean, that is it counts, I guess.
I think we're gonna look this up. Can we get research? Do we ever? I used to do that at NFL Network. Hey, research! Can you? Obviously, I'm sitting in my house wearing gym shorts.
Yeah, we don't.
Slightly different. I'm fairly certain that the Brandon Staley funeral, right? That Thursday night game where the Raiders blew the Chargers out of the building and it was ugly and uncomfortable, that Bo Hardigree was calling plays for the Raiders that night. I think he was. We got to look that up.
Hey, it goes on the resume if that was there.
Yeah.
I don't remember that Raiders team being a juggernaut on offense. I'll just say that.
No. It clearly was not. Although Trey Tucker had a big game that day, the kid from Cincinnati. Just because I remember I had to interview him on the field after the game. Anyway, that's how I remember games. Things like that. Oh, yeah, that time. And that flight was late and whatever. All right, so there's the show. We thank you for listening and watching. That is Charles. I am Andrew. We are back on Wednesday. All the coaches, all the quarterbacks on the podium. On Wednesday, you'll get the Jaxson Dart and Brian Daboll explanation. You'll get the injury updates around the league. Some concern in Washington about Terry McLaurin's availability for week 4 for the Commanders. All of that coming up on Wednesday's show. Inside coverage. Thanks for listening and watching and sharing and subscribing. For Charles, I'm Andrew. So long.